Hey gang, it's JC and this is the Daily Dose for Thursday, October 7th, 2010, a cooperative venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Brentwood. You can get us on the mobile phone right now. Also archives top of the page, eye candy bottom of the page, Dave's weather forecast and the audio on iTunes as we no longer in the midst of our 15-month paid vacation. If you were with us yesterday, we announced a new job at KTRS Radio starting on Monday, October 25th. Taking over the 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. slot. Yesterday, I spent the day in the law offices of my lawyer, getting everything, signed and all the T's crossed and the I's dotted, and getting the press release sent out to everybody. And then we decided to celebrate a little bit. So we went over to Dogtown and had a nice lunch at Seamus McDaniel's. Very, very nice over there. And then I came back home and got on the computer and watched the Goon Squad take over. There are people, I saw one comment from a guy, and I think this really sums it up, saying, whenever anybody starts anything new, the first thing that everybody seems to want to do is get on the internet, on one of these chat rooms, and of course anonymously, because you'd never have the balls to admit that you were doing it, but just anonymously wish the man or the woman who is starting a new venture all the bad luck in the world. I hope he falls on his face. He'll never be able to do it. That same old crap, you just sit there and go, wow, goons on the internet. And then you start punching around more and you realize that the well wishes are much more numerous than the goons out there who are hoping that you fall flat on your face. So to everybody who texted and emailed, a lot of my colleagues from various radio stations and media outlets around town, thank you very much. It's very much appreciated. And again, we had something like, it was over 100 Facebook friend requests just yesterday afternoon alone. So get on Facebook if you're there, and I'll update you on stuff. For example, this morning I got up, and the first thing I did is I went on Facebook and let everybody know that I was going to be on with Tim Ezzell on Fox 2 this morning. More about that in a minute. And then also I was on with McGraw-Millhaven on KTRS at about 9:05 this morning. We had a very nice chat. Fox 2 is nice enough, and Tim Ezzell nice enough to invite me over to the Warenberg Theater, to the Galaxy, because the Galaxy is where they are opening up that brand new luxury theater. 33 seats, and I'm telling you, the recliners, the seats are heated, folks. And the food is really good, and you get beer and wine, and there's a wait staff that will come over and wait on you. It's just unbelievable. 33 seats, and it's a great time. They're going to be showing Secretariat this weekend, which I've not seen, but I understand it's quite good. And The Town, the Ben Affleck movie, stuff like that. So anyhow, thanks to our pal Kelly Hoskins at Warenberg Theaters, everybody at Fox 2. I'll have more. We're putting it on eye candy. So I'll explain that in a minute here. So let's move on here. Yeah, and went over to the radio station for the first time today and stuck my head in there. Saw Charles Jaco, was very gracious about the fact that he is losing his show in favor of me. And then had my first conversation with the poor woman who is running the switchboard at KTRS, because as soon as they announce this thing, it's just like, KTRS, good morning. Yeah, I know. There's nothing I can do about it. And this poor woman, it's not her fault that the radio station has hired me, and screaming at her isn't going to do any good, and she doesn't even have the power to do it anyhow. And besides, what was the radio station going to say? Oh, really? You don't want him? Oh, okay, then we'll just pay him off his contract. And it's just stupid. It's silly stuff. This happens every time I switch stations. And it's not just me, by the way. Anybody with any sort of a reputation for doing something that is not boring, that's the response you get. Anyhow, oh, and by the way, I just want to go back to that Warenberg thing. Here's that 5-star lounge I was telling you about. It's called the 5-Star Lounge. 33 seats in the movie theater at the Galaxy in the Chesterfield Valley. And you open this thing up, it's nicer than a lot of restaurants I've been to. Look at this. It's chips and salsa, buffalo wings, popcorn, hot dogs, hamburgers, grilled chicken, Philly cheesesteak, waffle cones, concrete gelato bowl, nachos, baskets of chicken strips, barbecued chicken, soda, cosmopolitans, margaritas, wine by the glass. They're not kidding around with this thing. So congratulations to Warenberg Theaters. That's going to be a great time over there. We may try to go over there and see a show this weekend. All right, let's get to the news. Fox News fell for a phony story yesterday about the city of Los Angeles spending $1 billion for jetpacks for its police force. It turned out the story was phony. Now Fox News is promising to fire their fact checker as soon as they hire one. Next year's Jerry Lewis Labor Day Telethon for muscular dystrophy is going to be 15 hours shorter. They're cutting it down from 21 hours to 6 hours. Whoopi Goldberg says that sex takes too much time. Well, you know, it's hard to find a horny blind guy, so I can understand what she's getting at. Go back to 1992. It's hard to believe that the movie A Few Good Men is, you know, like 20 years old. But Jack Nicholson and Tom Cruise may be reuniting on a project called El Presidente. It's about a bumbling ex-president, and then Tom Cruise would star as his Secret Service agent who sort of like tries to bail him out of problems and keep him out of trouble. It sounds a little like that 1994 movie with Nicolas Cage and Shirley MacLaine called Guarding Tess. We'll see. Speaking of movies, I was forwarded today the trailer for the Amy Fisher video. Amy Fisher, the Long Island Lolita? Yeah, right. She's doing porn now, and when I say porn, I looked at the trailer today and we're talking porn. This is all the way everything you would figure would be in a porn movie, and she's doing it all. Now, I have to also say that Amy Fisher, to me, was never a particularly attractive young lady. Well, she has gotten a chin implant. She had something done with her eyes. She has gotten a boob job, and Lord knows what else they've done to her. But I have to tell you, she looks pretty good. I mean, especially for a porn star, she looks pretty good. So if you're into that, you're into all that way, all the that Amy Fisher thing is going to be out soon. If you punch around on the internet enough, you'll find the trailer too. A 24-year-long study. That's a long study. That's dedication. That happened in Germany, and they have concluded that women who are skinny are much happier than women who are in a relationship. Conan returns in about a month. Saw another couple of his promos during the baseball games yesterday, and if the show is half as funny as the promos, then he's going to have something. Amazon.com. Think about this for a minute. Amazon.com realizes you got all these iPads and Kindles and all that stuff out there. So we're going to start making our books that we've been selling, you know, hard copies of the book. We're going to sell more and more of these e-books. Well, turns out it's a huge ripoff because the ebooks cost almost nothing compared to actually physically having to send a manuscript to a printer and having to print and bind, you know, and do the production of everything and print. The ink and everything costs money. But the ebooks cost more than the actual physical trace evidence books. That doesn't even make sense. All right, we got another sex study. I like sex studies. Doesn't really seem to change anything, but they are fun to read. Researchers at Indiana University's Center for Sexual Health just released the results of an enormous sex study. It's actually the largest, most comprehensive American sex study since 1994. You're getting into the whole Masters and Johnson thing here now. Almost 6,000 people surveyed from ages 14 to 94. And it's 130 pages of charts. Here's some of the highlights. For example, no one touches themselves more frequently than men 25 to 29. I think we pretty much knew that. Number 2, no one touches themselves less frequently than women over 70. I'm oddly comforted by that. Number 3, teenagers are more responsible than adults when it comes to using condoms during random hookups. 84% of males 14 to 17 ages and 88% of females use the condom, and when you get into the adult numbers, it's like half of that, which is disturbing. People in relationships go at themselves a lot more. This is actually like more of a masturbation study than it is a sex study so far. About half of people of both genders who are in relationships had their way with themselves at least once a day, once in the past 90 days, not once a day. That would be a completely different study now, wouldn't it? Number 5, people in relationships have more oral than single people. So you can apparently ignore the stereotypes that say oral ends once you're in a relationship. That's when you're trying to make the sale, but apparently it's wrong. Number 6, grandparents have backdoor relations too. 1.4% of married people aged 70 and up had the dirtiest kind of sex there is sometime in the last 90 days. Number 7, backdoor relations are becoming more popular. Compared to a similar study in 1992, about twice as many men and women admit they've gone in through the outdoor. Number 8, people who have had same-sex relations don't always think of themselves as gay. In the survey, 7% of women and 8% of men identify themselves as gay, lesbian, or bisexual, but far more had admitted to having some kind of same-sex contact in their lives. For example, almost 11% of men and 20 to 24% of women say they've received the naughty from another member of the own sex, but many of them identify themselves as hetero. I'm oddly fascinated by that. I can understand the girl thing. There's something that is different about women, especially in college. But if guys have had sex with a man, maybe I'm old school here, I don't know. Number 9, men overestimate women's climaxes. Really? You needed a study for that. About 85% of men say the last time they had sex with a woman, she reached her moment of climax, but only 64 of women say they got there. So there's about, there's 20% there is lost in the ozone somewhere. What do you think's going on there? Anyhow, to make it easier to read, because this thing was 130 pages, and they did this, it's an enormous sex study. To make it easier to read, the results are broken into 3 groups: teens, adults, and Tiger Woods. All right, what else do we have here for you? It was 1984 on this date, and I will never forget it, because my sister got me a pair of Bears New Orleans Saints tickets at Soldier Field in Chicago. And so my girlfriend at the time, Angie Messina, the beautiful freckled redhead from downtown Cahokia, Illinois, we got in the car, we drove to Chicago, and we went to that noon game and watched Walter Payton break Jim Brown's all-time rushing record of 12,312 yards. But the story doesn't end there, because we left that game about halfway through the third quarter because we had to buzz back down Lakeshore Drive to go back to my sister's house. Why? Because we were going to watch the Chicago Cubs against the San Diego Padres. The Cubs, that 1984 team with Rick Sutcliffe and, oh gosh, you had Sarge out in left field and Bobby Dernier in center field and Jody Davis and Larry Boa, Ron Say, Ryan Sandberg, and of course Harry with the play-by-play. Holy cow. Well, that was the game that Leon Durham was playing first base, and all the Cubs had to do was win that game, and they're off to the, the World Series maybe. But no, Leon Durham had let that ground ball go through his legs at first base. Cubs lost to the San Diego Padres. Padres went on, and you know the rest of the story. 1984 on this date. Hardly seems possible. All right, JC's Video Village today. We've got Jamie Lee Curtis from back in 1998. The Wayback Machine is just the most fascinating video you've ever seen from the Oval Office of Bill Clinton. You've got to see this. I'm not overselling it. Just look at it. You'll know what I'm talking about. Our old school photo goes back to Disney World 8 years ago for Regis and Kelly. JC's Eye Candy. If you missed us on Fox 2 this morning with Tim Ezell from that new Warenberg Luxury Theater in the Chesterfield Valley, you can watch it. It's JC's Eye Candy today. That's it for Thursday, October 7th, 2010, a cooperative venture with Mind Active in beautiful downtown Brentwood. We call it the Daily Dose. We're going back on the air in about 2 weeks, folks. Taking over the 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. slot at the Big 550 KTRS on Monday, October 25th. In the meantime, we've beaten this one to death. Have a good one. See you later. Bye.